We've seen a number of questionable decisions made throughout the course of the RWBY series, more so in recent volumes compared to others, especially when it comes to those made by Cinder Fall. In particular, her most recent decision to now start disobeying direct orders from Salem pretty much immediately after she gets them. At the end of episode 4 of Volume 8, Cinder expressed her desire to go after the Winter Maiden. Salem put a stop to that, saying that she will stay put until told otherwise. This was even under threat of the Hound. And yet, as so much as Salem turned the corner in the hallway, Cinder turned to Neo and said she has other ideas. That Salem doesn't know these kids as well as she does. And she wants to go check on Amity because they're sure to try and get that up and running. Implying that Salem, the one who orchestrated the fall of Beacon Academy, the attack on Haven Academy, and has set up pretty much everything happening in Atlas so far, except maybe Neo actually obtaining the Relic of Knowledge. That was probably an anomaly that was beneficial for her, but Cinder is implying that Salem, the one who has orchestrated all of this, wouldn't have taken into account that Amity might still be put up and running, and that, well, the world might find out about her existence. In fact, that's quite likely playing into Salem's plan, and Cinder, being the disobedient child as she is going out and trying to pursue her own goals, do what she thinks is right when she's not, as Salem has already said, a player in this game that is going on. So regardless of how this turns out for Cinder, it's not going to turn out well. There will be repercussions, and I think we have a pretty good idea of what those repercussions might be, or what Salem is having in mind for Cinder at the very least. In episode 4 of Volume 8, we learned a little bit more about the Hound, that it is an experiment of Salem's, and she is quite pleased with the results. Now, if the Hound, as many are speculating, myself included, is in fact a human that has been taken over or corrupted by Grimm, creating a very powerful and very obedient servant, something that would be very beneficial for someone like Cinder, who possesses the Fall Maiden powers and has been pretty much nothing but disobedient thus far. Slight spoiler warning for one line of Cinder's dialogue in episode 5 of Volume 8. Cinder says that she serves no one. So, obviously, she has intentions to disobey in the future, pursue her own goals, and not really care about Salem's goals, just keeping up the guise of being obedient to Salem. So, in Salem's mind, to keep the Fall Maiden under wraps, because Salem at this point in her mind still needs the Fall Maiden to access the relic under Beacon Academy, though there are other ways that that could be hidden. Ozpin may have kept it separate from the Maiden lock cycle that is in the vaults under the academies, etc., but still, Salem would be able to make use of the Fall Maiden, especially if she had a Hound 2.0 made from Cinder that possesses the Maiden powers. Because Cinder is already part Grimm, the Grimm arm, and we saw in the Volume 8 opening that she seems to be in a bit of agony because of this Grimm arm. I think it's fully likely that by the end of this volume, Salem is going to try to completely take over Cinder through this arm. Not to mention there's also the Grimm beetle that Cinder used to obtain the Fall Maiden powers in the first place, which possibly altered her biology, making her part Grimm. The tattoo on her back was likely from the Grimm beetle, and that was the entire reason why Ruby's Silver Eyes affected her at the top of Beacon Tower, because she had this part Grimm in her, made her lose her arm and her eye, etc. So I think Salem will have the capabilities and will have the inclination to corrupt Cinder at the end of this volume. So that leaves a couple options open for Cinder. Either she will become the next Hound, a very powerful servant for Salem that will currently have one of the Maiden powers and potentially more as the series moves forward, because she might obtain the Spring Maiden powers from Raven. We'll see how Volume 8 plays out. She might obtain the Winter Maiden powers, and then there's the Summer Maiden powers. Salem still sees her as the vessel for the Maiden's powers. Salem's completely aware of her disobedience and her general attitude towards, well, the goals that she wants to achieve, and Salem's goals overall. Salem is not in the dark about this and is orchestrating things, I think, to her own desire, though Cinder is trying to meddle with it, and I think Salem will certainly try to keep Cinder under control, and through the Hound will be a good option to do this. Or another path that Cinder could take is trying to break away from Salem. She's not going to become a hero or anything like that to turn to fight against Salem, but I think she might try to break away from Salem's faction so that she can obtain all the maiden powers herself and then potentially come back and challenge Salem. Possibly, by the end of this volume, Cinder will try to cut off this grim arm, rip it from herself to free herself from Salem's potential control or Salem's influence in that way, shape, or form entirely. I would find that an interesting path for Cinder to take. She kind of already went that route throughout Volume 6, how she was dejected or rejected from Salem's faction until she redeemed herself, thus prompting her to go to Atlas and get the Relic of Knowledge to make up for past mistakes, considering the entire reason she failed at Haven Academy was in pursuit of her own goals. So I think Cinder might try to go that route, completely removing herself from Salem's faction, from Salem's influence, and break out on her own. This won't be a repeat of Volume 6 and Volume 7, though, because if Cinder does go this route, there is no possibility of her returning to Salem's faction in good favor. The only possibility of her return would be to be corrupted and turned into the Hound 2.0. So Cinder would be going off on her own, or with Emerald in tow, because Emerald is still very attached to Cinder, and I have a feeling that that's likely not going away very soon, that she's still going to want to make that family out of whatever she can, and so if Cinder does break away in this faction, I think Emerald might try to go with her, and it could offer some moral redemption, kind of, for Cinder if she actually is able to go off on her own, feel like she has hit rock bottom, has lost everything, and maybe lets go of some of this anger. Emerald could have some positive influence on her, and we could see it move to the final battle where Cinder does come back, possibly still in pursuit of other maiden powers, or try to fight against Salem and end up sacrificing herself in that way. I really do not see Cinder surviving the entirety of the RWBY series. She's not going to become a good guy or a protagonist or anything like that, but I could see her becoming kind of, I don't know if an anti-hero is the right word, but someone who breaks away from Salem's influence, goes through some other character development, and realizes that there may be other goals she wants to pursue, comes back in the final hour of the battle, and deals a significant blow to Salem, thus sacrificing herself in the process. The final hour, as in the midnight hour, you know, the entire Cinderella inspiration, that the clock will finally strike midnight for Cinder and she will die. I'm gonna guess in Volume 12 of RWBY. I think that the series will be able to make it to at least 12 or 13 volumes based on, 3 volumes for each kingdom and things like that. 1 final volume for the final battle, Return to Beacon. All of those types of things is what I'm guessing for the RWBY series, but it would be very poetic for Cinder to come back in that final hour and, go that overall route of sacrificing herself to deal a blow to Salem. Not necessarily being on RWBY's side, though that would be interesting in its own right, having Cinder start off as the main protagonist for the first 3 volumes, and then coming back as kind of a linchpin in that final hour. But it could also go the route as Cinder will just be turned into the Hound 2.0, which I could see as probably more likely given Salem's power and her influence, and likely not wanting to let Cinder escape. So overall, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you think that Cinder will become the Hound 2.0? Or do you think she's going to follow the more difficult route for her, that being to rip off that grim arm, break away from Salem's influence, and follow her own path for a while? Different than having some redemption in Volume 6, but hitting rock bottom, potentially having Emerald be a positive influence on her rather than Cinder be a negative influence on Emerald, which would be a very nice change and possibly give some hope that there will be a better life for Emerald, maybe? But with Cinder's influence, not entirely sure. I think that would be an interesting path for everything to take, so let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do my ideas sound reasonable? Do you think that this would be a good plot progression for Cinder overall? I'm really curious to know your guys' thoughts. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did want to see more like it, more RWBY theories, more analysis, etc., make sure to subscribe and join the Guild of the Eternal Flame. Tweet me at Phoenix Knight 7, and I'll see you guys in the next video.